Take the Leap is the podcast where we get real about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship and life. Sure, some folks make running a business look like a walk in the park, but let's be honest, it's more like a wild ride through a theme park with a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Join us, your co-hosts, Ashlan
and Tory,
as we spill the beans on our own real-life experiences and shine a spotlight on some amazing guests. From the highs of success stories to the lows of epic failures. And hey, we'll even throw in some cringe-worthy, laugh-out-loud, embarrassing moments for good measure.
So buckle up and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday for a dose of raw, unfiltered truth about what it's really like to chase your dreams and build a business.
Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the startup world, we've got something for everyone. Even if it's just to make you think, wow, I'm glad I didn't do what they did. Welcome back, everyone, to the Take the Leap podcast. We are super excited to welcome our guest, Mark Mohammadpour, to the podcast. Mark is the founder and chief well-being officer of Chasing the Sun. After spending his public relations career working for brands such as Microsoft and the U.S. Army, and after losing and keeping off 150 pounds over the last decade, Mark founded Chasing the Sun to empower people to prioritize their well-being so they can shine in the family room and the boardroom. Chasing the Sun's inclusive and interactive keynotes, workshops, and training programs help companies design their culture of well-being. Beyond everything that you're going to read about Mark in his bio, the funniest person he knows is his incredible wife, Christine. He'll be talking to you today about his love of soccer, Peloton, and his sweet Labradoodle, Molly. And his favorite music era is the early mid-1990s, and we'll have those on repeat all day long. So thanks, Mark, for being here.
We're so excited to have you.
Oh, I cannot. It's just an honor to be here, and congratulations on this venture. And yeah, I'm just happy to help people share my story, and thank you for having me on.
Awesome. I think, Mark, you and I go back as far as Ashlan and I do as well. I think because it was around that same time frame where we all met. And it's been many years, and we've all kind of seen the ventures that we've been on through our careers, and it's been really cool. I love that we are all sitting here today with our own businesses. How amazing is that?
It really is. It's incredibly inspiring, and you're absolutely right. And it's just being able to see our journeys and follow each other. I think that's really special. And that again, this is why I'm so excited that you're doing this, because there's going to be someone who's going to hear this, and it's going to help propel them, which is what we all want.
Yeah, that's our goal. Yes, I hope these conversations help inspire people. Yes. For sure.
Well, with that said, Mark, would you please tell our audience what is your Take the Leap story?
It was around 2017, I think, is a good place to start. I was about 15, 16, 17 years into my public relations career, and I was thinking about what the next phase of my journey was. And I had been working with big brands, working at big agencies. I was thinking about my relationship with the Public Relations Society of America, which is kind of the one of the foremost public relations associations in the world, and I was doing a lot of volunteer work here locally in Portland, Oregon, and I was thinking about my relationship with them and my career. And my father had passed away in early 2017, and he was very much into wellness and keeping in shape. And as you had mentioned at the top, I have lost and kept off nearly 150 pounds over the last 15 years. And so I was thinking about all this, and I was thinking about my journey, and I was thinking about my strengths, and I was taking pride in the teams that I was running, and I would come in and run account teams, and my goal was really to make sure they didn't burn out, that their boundaries were set, and I felt really proud of that we were able to do really good by our clients, but also retain our people. And so I was putting all this together, and I started thinking about the well-being of the PR professional. It's a burned out group. It's one of the most stressful professions out there. And I thought there could be a role to play in helping this group. I primarily started in physical health. I got my personal training certification. I got my health coaching certification. I didn't know what to do with it. And then, over the next couple of years, I started speaking more about the topic. I started speaking more about my weight loss journey. I started speaking at events, and folks were starting to, kind of respond positively because they didn't know the journey and they wanted to know more. And I took the leap in 2019 when I launched Chasing the Sun. And at the time, it was primarily health coaching for communicators. It was the audience that I knew. And so I started offering one-on-one and group coaching. And so that was in the fall of 2019. A lot has evolved since then, but that's really to answer your question. That's when I took the leap in 2017.
That's awesome. I have been
That's
through one of
amazing.
your group programs around the holiday time, and that was just a very helpful level set and reminder that we are so much in control of what we do every day that it's, you don't need to get burnt out or stressed. You have control over what you choose to do, including foods you eat as well around the holiday time. So thanks so much for sharing. And I do remember in that coffee shop, I mean, we had all been talking about us meeting up in early 2020. And I remember like asking you a lot of questions like, oh, you did that. Oh, what was it like? All these various things, not even knowing that my own journey, a year later would be quite the same thing of like, okay, there's an opportunity here. Let's do it.
We only have one life to live,
Oh,
right? And so being able
right.
to try it. And I think one of the things I've been chatting with people about recently is, we're no longer working at the same company for 30 or 40 years. And, that's we're seeing generational shift and just the opportunities to grow. And, the length of our career book is still the same length, but the chapters are a lot shorter. And so when we're talking about taking the leap as you're doing and thinking about starting your company, and I think one of the things that's important for people to realize is that people start companies all the time. They exit them, they start new ones, they sell them, they morph into other things, they partner. But it all starts with starting and being passionate about it, and things evolve. Sometimes you're not interested in it anymore, and that's okay. You learn so much from the process. And that's what I want to try to share with people is that, you're going to learn so much more about running a business and what you can do than working in a job. And that's not to say working for an ordinary job isn't valuable or have purpose. I'm just telling you from my experience, I've learned more in the last 4 years of running my own business than I did in the previous 20.
Amazing. I would have to definitely agree with that and relate to that. I mean, who was it that said owning your own business is the best personal development that you could do, and you find out the most about yourself? It's very true. It's very true.
100%.
And yeah, I love what you do so much, especially kind of coming a little bit from that world, more from the marketing side. It's very stressful, especially in the agency world and with deadlines and the amount of work that's expected. I just love that you just kind of had that approach to it. And you're right, we only live one life. So why kill ourselves literally
Yeah.
for our work?
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
yes, thank you.
And that's how it's really evolved over the last few years. That first year I was really focused on physical health, and then with the pandemic and how people's relationships with their jobs started to evolve and how they thought about them, I then evolved Chasing the Sun to think broader around employee well-being. And so it's not just physical, it's mental, it's the well-being of your career, financial well-being, all those factors that impact an employee's kind of relationship with their employer. And so my role now is working with companies on being strategic about what employee well-being means in a company. What does culture mean within a company, and helping to define that. So I'm not coming in giving seminars on, financial advice, or I'm not providing therapy. What I am doing is making sure that employees are aware of the benefits that they exist, and working with teams on how to communicate those benefits to their folks, and then providing workshops on topics that, if not talked about, can cause stress and anxiety, can cause us to lose sleep, and sometimes leave our company because we don't think our folks take care of ourselves. So I talk about leading with empathy, talk about imposter syndrome, toxic positivity, how to run remote and hybrid teams, and how to kind of write those unwritten rules around expectations around your teams. That all these topics that I didn't really learn myself. I kind of had to maybe learn from managers, but there wasn't any specific training on. I'm trying to get ahead of that to help mitigate those challenges. And so again, it all kind of ties back to the mission, but over the last few years, it's evolved, and I love where we're at now, in which I'm essentially acting as a fractional chief wellbeing officer for companies, and that includes consulting and workshops and a series of keynote talks to be able to address those. And that's just been the wonderful journey of chasing the sun so far, and we're just getting started.
That's great. That's great. And I feel like every entrepreneur probably has a similar story in where they started in one spot and then several years later they're in a completely different thing. And I think that's how we work. That's how we learn from everything. And that's how we know what our audience needs, right? Is by getting to know them and just diving in. So I love that so much. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I think taking a leap is really starting, and then it's figuring out from there, right? I think there's one thing to say you're going to make a pivot every few months when people are just still learning what you're doing, right? I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned since launching the company. And listeners and watchers, please take this advice. Understand that it takes time for people to really understand what you're doing and what your brand is. It takes a lot of time before then and making a purchasing decision, right? And you think about making a purchasing decision yourself, whether it's for, a software service, a car, piece of clothing. How do you learn about the brand, and how many times does it take for you to make a decision? It's much like that for your customers and your clients. They might see an email from you, they might see a LinkedIn post, they might see you speak, they might hear you on a podcast, but how many more times do they need to get that information? And that could take days, could take months, it could take years. And so even if things don't start right away, and they do for some people, which is great, right? A lot of preparation, understanding what your audience wants and needs, and be able to make sure that we're messaging on there. But sometimes it takes time to realize, okay, I don't need them yet, but I know I will one day. And this is what I've experienced, is that someone might see me speak 18 months later, reach out to me and say, hey, Mark, I loved hearing you speak at that conference last year. Could we hire you to come in? And that happens a lot. And that just comes to trust in yourself, trust in having confidence in what you're delivering, and following up with folks and building relationships. And then when they're ready, you be as ready as well. And so that's just one of the big things I just want to make sure people understand, is that the more that you show up every day and have confidence, the more that people are going to follow you on your journey, because they know that you're in it for forever. And that impacts purchasing decisions, and their trust in you, and those types of things.
Awesome.
That's such a good point.
I was going to say that dovetails good into the kind of final question before we put you in the hot seat is, what's your why? Why do you do this stuff? What drives you to do this work?
I care about the well-being of people, and I care about making sure that I do what I can to help people live a life that they want to live. And I noticed that through my weight loss journey. When I was 350 pounds, I was miserable. I was breaking chairs in restaurants, and I trying to sit in a coach seat on a flight for business trip from Portland to New York. Pretty miserable. And I knew what that felt like. And even though that was related to physical health, we know that other elements of our well-being impact us in our personal and professional lives. And I think a lot of that can be mitigated by being proactive, building trust and rapport, very strong communication, and clarity. And I love doing it. I feel like I do it well, and I feel like I get purpose when I hear from people and say, we've made changes to our meeting structure. We've made changes to, having fewer on-camera meetings. We are making adjustments to how many days our teams are coming in the office and being very prescriptive as to why. And because of that, our employees are happy and they're staying, and that's impacting our business. And so for me, it gets that real mixture of this is good for the business, but it's good for the people, and that's what's most important. And I'm able to take the skills that I've learned as a PR executive and be able to apply it in a different way. And I love the PR industry, but I don't do PR anymore except for myself. This is a form of public relations, doing this interview, right? But I still have the skills that are transferable, it's just in a new way. And so I think that's why I love doing this, because this industry has meant so much to me, and I'm now able to apply it in a different way. And but at the end of the day, it's seeing the results, it's seeing the head nods, it's seeing the folks who in the moment are making those decisions that are impacting the business, but also the individuals, and that's my why.
I love that.
That's amazing. I love that so much. And if you think about it too, like, especially over the last few years as the business world's changed so much, the companies that actually care and prioritize their employees' well-being over, oh, well, that's too expensive to do another program, or that's, I just want them in the office so I can see them, or, whatever it is. The ones that actually care are usually the ones that go further. So I would argue that it does impact your bottom line to actually put your employees first.
100%. The data shows that investors want to invest in companies that have a good reputation. If you have a poor reputation, you lose your people. It costs a lot of money to replace them. You have to hire recruiters and all those other things, and onboarding and lost productivity. That has real financial impact. We're also thinking about things beyond wellness, right? Yoga sessions are great and healthy snacks are great, but really it's about what do people need. Parents need childcare. They need insurance. They need to make sure that they have flexible schedules so that they can take care of their families. If we're going to ask them to commute into an office, we better give them a really good reason why. What is that experience going to be in the office that's different than at home? I'm not saying to not have an office. I am saying, though, that we need to talk about what that is. This is about, again, the relationship between the employee and the employer. And we're seeing a revolution now in how we're talking about this. And I just want to play a role with my communications background to be able to say, look, there's an opportunity here to make sure that, we're connecting some dots, because we have to make sure at the end of the day that whatever we're doing ties to business objectives. Completely understand that. But it has to be employee first, and we have to think about it through that lens, because without them, we don't have a company.
Yeah. I think a lot of people forget about that, is that if everybody left tomorrow, you're screwed. Like, there's no way.
100%.
Yeah. Last I checked, most CEOs at big companies do not know how to do all of the different roles.
Right. And that lends to another part where, my focus is on helping companies design a culture of well-being. And we talked a lot about well-being, but there's also the culture part. And to me, it's one part, the CEO or the executives talking about the mission and the vision of the company and the values, but we also have to think about it from the terms of the employee. When you're working at a company, your relationship with your employer is really around your work stream. You're thinking about the 80, 85, 90% of the time, it's your immediate team. If you're working for an agency, it might be your account teams or other account teams, or if you're working in-house and if you're in HR, IT, finance, you're working primarily with the same amount of people for most of the time. So your definition of culture is with the people you're spending most of the time with. And so what I do is work with companies on not only just enterprise-wide plans, but really at a team level, how are we operating together? Because all of those different groups have to operate in a different way in order to meet the needs of their goals. And that's, again, everything from why are we coming into the office? When can we take vacation? That's a whole other factor. And how we prioritize things, how we communicate with one another. We're able to communicate 15, 20 different channels, everything from WhatsApp and Instagram to text and email and phone calls. That's overwhelming. So how are teams communicating with one another? All this adds up to more time, more stress, less sleep, more ambiguity. And that's what I'm trying to do, is get things more specific so that people are aware of their expectations and they feel good and they can sleep at night, and feeling a little bit less stressed out about things. And so that has to be done, I think, at a work stream level. And those are the things that I'm working with companies on.
Have you read the book Digital Body Language? It is so good okay. So you know about the, like, people just getting, it's really good. I highly recommend it. But one of the parts talks about, the stress level of ambiguous messages that you get from your boss. Like, if you just have, there's already, you see something on your phone and you're like, oh my God, what does she want? kind of thing. And then to have it be super non-specific or anything, like, people, because of the power dynamics, automatically think that there's something wrong, even if it was just like a shoot the shit kind of text message. But or a text message at like 7 p.m. It's like, I'm not working right now. What do you want? kind of thing. So
Ashlan, call me. Tory.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Scheduling a call or a meeting that just says meeting. And it could be completely, fine. It could be good news, but that's unnecessary stress. There are certain times when you're working with HR that you have to be, you have to be vague, but let's go through the filter. Again, this is about empathy, about the recipient. So instead of saying, hey, got a sec, it's, hey, I have some good news I want to share with you. Do you have a few minutes? Or I have some constructive feedback from the client. It's all going to be okay, but I do want to walk you through this. That's a lot better than, hey, need to talk, right? Like, let's treat each other like adults. Let's get some more context on things. Exactly, like you said, digital wellness, 100%.
Well, it's just the stories that I would make up in my head working for people who were like that. And sometimes I would be so completely off base. It was not necessary for me to spend the whole night feeling like I was going to throw up. And some days, it was warranted, but it's just that style. And I think kind of the politics kind of around that is why, one of the many reasons why I became an entrepreneur. And I know, Ashlan, you're probably in the same boat there. And so many people kind of feel that way too. So if we could just change the culture in general, then people would just have so many more options and we'd all be happier.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot agree more. And that doesn't mean that we don't have responsibility. It doesn't mean that if we don't do work as expected, that we shouldn't have a dialogue. But it is giving context to things, and it is treating people like humans and helping each other learn, and not assuming that everybody knows what the other person is thinking. And even things like acronyms and company jargon, making sure that we're checking ourselves a little bit. And, if I were onboarding at a company, I would get a sheet of, jargon to learn. I'd say, okay, that's great, but can we take a step back and say, do we really need all this jargon?
All of this.
How does this
help? It's necessary.
These are, again, all the things that are sort of stumbling blocks for folks, and it gets intimidating and impacts their confidence. And it's amazing what that effect can have on somebody and how they're showing up every day.
Absolutely.
I love that. That's amazing.
Okay.
We're going
to transition into hot seat questions. So I think Tory has the first one for you.
I do. Ashlan's going to make fun of me because I ask everybody this question to start with. I don't know why it's my favorite. I'm obsessed with some of the answers we've gotten. So my question for you is, what is the worst and or best piece of advice that you've gotten throughout your career?
The best piece of advice I got was in the middle of my career, my agency career, and I led a presentation at an all-staff meeting, and it was basically giving a case study about great work for a client. And it was me and three of my colleagues who were going to be talking about it. I was a senior person. I felt I was the one who needed to present the whole thing, and so I did. It was a virtual call. So again, this was 10 years ago, but it was virtual. I was calling in, and a couple other folks were calling in, but the main office in another city was going on. A couple of weeks later, I went back to the main office, and my boss sat me down and said, "Hey, Mark, you know that thing you did a few weeks ago, you needed to let your team lead that. Their success is your success." And so I think that's the best piece of advice I got. It was not an ego thing. It was just, I felt that's what I needed to do in the role that I had. And no one had sat me down and explained that to me. That 3-minute conversation is more impactful than anything that, you know, I learned before then.
That's amazing. I love that. That's incredible advice. It's so true.
I was going to say, it comes through in what you do today to let
Yes,
the folks
absolutely.
shine.
That's exactly the point.
Absolutely.
That's exactly the point. Because I think part of it is also, you know, understanding how people like to be motivated and appreciated and rewarded. I think that's a part of it, you know, and kind of learning that. That's definitely a step in leadership to take, but it's getting out of the way. Your executives, your bosses will know that it's you, the good ones, at least the ones that, you know, are going to acknowledge that. They're going to know that it was under your leadership and your support, and it's just building up those folks and having the confidence to say, it's okay. I don't need to take the front seat on this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that.
All right. My next question is, I know you have an incredible story of your, journey to health and well-being. I want to know, and this can be, how you stuck to it and how you built that resilience, because I feel like it probably also comes through in how you stick with being an entrepreneur, because there's a lot of hard times in this journey as well. So yeah, I would love if you would share that with our audience.
That's a good question. I mean, just like the business, I've had ups and downs since my main weight loss. And I think part of it, part of what's gotten me through is making sure that I have the core things down. And to, at least from a fitness standpoint and wellness, it comes down to really a couple things. One is, making sure that in the morning that I'm eating healthy foods, because that is really going to help me fuel my day. One of the first changes I made in my weight loss journey was I used to drink 500 calorie mochas and eat 500 calorie scones, and by 8 a.m. at 1,000 calories in my stomach. And I switched to green tea and spinach feta wraps, and I cut my caloric intake by 70%. And so I knew that was a core element of what success would look like. And as that relates to kind of the entrepreneurial front, I want to make sure that I'm focusing on the things that are going to have the most impact on my day. And that's connecting with my clients, it's making sure my existing clients feel good. It's being able to bring something new to prospective clients. It's, reaching out and saying hello to folks. It's just getting that sort of system and routine down. I'm still working on it, but I think that's one of the biggest things. And then the second thing, especially as it relates to my fitness, is strength training. And I think a lot of us, when we think about our physical health, we really focus so much on our cardio, when really strength training is just as important, if not more, especially if we want to lose weight, because it really helps with burning fat and getting our metabolism up and all of those things. And strength training is just so critical. It's important for our muscles and our bones, our joints, and just our future selves to take care of our muscles. So it's not, running is great, but it's not doing that every day. It's doing actual strength training, and it's important for your physical health, which impacts everything else.
Yeah. Actually, no, sorry. I'm taking a left field with my next question. You mentioned in your bio that your favorite music era is in the early mid 1990s. If you could choose one album to play on repeat for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, that's an easy one. I'm not sure how much of your audience would know about it, but I'll just say it. My favorite band is Oasis. You would know them from Wonderwall. Wonderwall is the second album of theirs called What's the Story, Morning Glory. But my favorite album, that was a great album. My favorite one is their first one called Definitely Maybe. It's literally 30 years ago this year that it came out in 1994. And actually, one of their songs called Slide Away has a phrase called Chasing the Sun. And that's one of the reasons why Chasing the Sun is why it's named. So that would be the
Oh my
album
goodness.
that would be on permanent repeat.
I just want to point out real quick that I swear I didn't know that information. I feel like that was a tee up, like a really good.
Well, I have always appreciated your business name being that I am from
Yes.
Hawaii and I am always chasing the sun somewhere as well. But yeah, I remember, I can't remember what the breakdown is. So I want our audience to know this because you had said something during one of those group trainings about the amount of vacation time you should try to use up. And like, what will you remind me what that breakdown was? I think it was like 1 day and then 1 week and 1 month or something like that. So
Yeah,
I'm sure you know it better than me.
well, absolutely. And just for background, Americans are terrible at taking time off, and the data is showing that we're leaving weeks on the table. And companies have made some adjustments. Some companies have gone to what's called unlimited PTO, which really seems nice on paper, but in reality, that's to keep the paid time off the books, because if you have specific time, that has to be kind of liquid and on the books. If you have unlimited, there's really no set, and so you don't have to have that on the books, and so that's a different liability. The problem is that there's no structure around it, and so you have people who don't use it. And I saw this a lot in my career. I saw folks who would go 8-9 months without taking time off, especially people new to their career. They thought they had to show up, they had to lean in, didn't take time off, and that causes burnout. And so the system that I implemented in my career and that I chatted about is making sure that we are taking a regular time off. And I called it a 6-3-1 approach, so that every 6 months you're taking at least a week off. Every quarter, every 3 months, you're taking a long weekend, maybe a Friday and a Monday. And every month you're taking off a half day or a full day. Now, the idea is not for everybody to do that exact system, but the idea is some sort of structure for people to think about how to proactively take their time. Now, there are going to be people who want to bank their time for a long holiday, wedding, whatever, and that's fine. We're all adults. What I don't want to see, though, is people burning out because they don't think they can take their time off, and just because they're scared of what their boss thinks. And so I want to empower them. And these are the conversations I have with a team and help facilitate this and say, okay, as a team, we're going to take this time off. But then the other part of it is, how do we operationalize it? Because it's one thing to take the time off, but then how do we make sure that we take the time off guilt-free, that we're not checking our email on vacation? If our bosses should not be checking their email, should not be joining calls, or if they do, they better be a really good reason. And then when they come back, want to make sure that it's as kind of stress-free of an experience as it can. We've all experienced those, what was it called? Those stressful Sundays. I can't remember what the exact term is, but what I ask people to do is, if you're working on a team and somebody's coming back from vacation, have your team craft an email of all the things that went on while they were out. So if they read one email when they come back, this is kind of a recap of what's happening, instead of having to go through that 500,000 emails. Prepare an email as best as you can to get them up to speed. And everybody should receive it. It doesn't matter if you are the lead person on the team, or if you're more junior. Everyone should do that. And the more that happens, I think those scary Sundays, that was the
Sunday scaries, yeah.
Sunday scaries. That helps mitigate so much stress. And someone might say, well, these are just little things, and kind of, I guess they are, quote unquote, but I think they impact our well-being. How many times have we heard people not wanting to go on vacation because they're scared of all the workload they have when they come back? I mean, my heart just sinks when I hear that. And does it need to be like
You're just never, yeah. Oh.
Or you front load it. That's what I always would do. Like when I was working at other places, my husband would be like, why are you doing this? Like, we're going to be gone for 2 weeks. So I need to do 3 weeks in 1 week because nobody else knows how to do what the hell I do. So, or you do the plane, I'm checking up until we get on the plane and then checking like as soon as, we're waiting in the airport. Yeah, no, it's not a good way to be.
And that's just as bad. I mean, and again, this is what we do to ourselves. And I'm not about trying to penalize or make people feel bad for doing that. They're coming from a good place because they care so much about the work that they do and they're advocates and all those things. But the more that as teams, as leaders, we can show up and help people realize that they don't need to do this and truly not and say it's okay, the better. This also comes down to prioritization. I think we have an opportunity when it comes to the relationship between managers and employees to make sure there's real clarity on what the priorities are. And if somebody is getting, extra projects or priorities from somebody else, well, their manager may not know all of the things that their team are working on. And so having that constant dialogue is key. And I know there's so many project management tools out there, but it goes beyond that. It goes beyond have a true dialogue around what's important, how are we spending our time, and if we can't get it all done, what's most important. That's the difference between working 18-hour days and working 10-hour days, 9-hour days. That's the difference between having to front load all that work and feeling guilt-free before taking that vacation. I think it comes a lot down to setting those expectations and setting boundaries.
Absolutely.
And that's definitely, even when you become an entrepreneur, I feel like there's still that struggle because I came from that world and I was so used to responding right away. And I've definitely had to unlearn that. But one thing you mentioned about the Sunday scaries that I wanted to say is one thing I love about being a business owner is I no longer get that. Yeah. It faded away, and all of a sudden Sunday night rolls around and my husband's like, ugh, I have to work tomorrow. I'm like, it's Sunday. And it's just like such a difference.
It is.
I love it. It's my favorite thing.
It is different. I think the opportunity is how do we shut off as entrepreneurs? And I still have challenges with that, right? I'm so tied to my work. It doesn't feel like work. So it's hard to compare, but your brain doesn't shut off, right? It's tonight we're recording this on a Friday. Like I might be waking up in the middle of the night and thinking something, and it's not in a bad way. It's just, your brain doesn't really shut off. I'm still working on that, but again, I don't feel so bad. My sleep is good. My health is good. Like I'm feeling good about things. But as an entrepreneur, that's a little bit of an adjustment. You're right. You don't have the Sunday scaries, but it does get replaced with something that sort of envelops you. And that's okay, as long as your health is okay.
Yeah. I have a brain dump whiteboard for that I write on all the time.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to start a rule where I can't bring my phone into the bedroom with me, because if I can't sleep, I'll look through like reels and TikToks and of companies, and I'll just like, that's a great idea. And then all of a sudden I'm wide awake and I've written down like 20 different ideas on my notes that I want to go through. Yes. I think I need to just put that phone away, because I think that's what gets me usually.
Yeah. The phone on Do Not Disturb at 10 p.m. is a beautiful thing. I know my mom freaked out about it in the beginning. She was like, what if I can't get through to you? And I was like, your phone rings through. You just got to call a couple times. And now that I live, further away from her, I'm like, what can I do? I think 911 might be a better call for you, because I can't get there in 10 minutes anymore. But our relationship with technology is a total other rabbit hole that we can
exactly.
as well.
We could talk about that for a long time. That's great.
Thank you again, Mark, for being with us. Is there anything else you want to promote or highlight or share with our audience before we take off today?
I'm active on LinkedIn. You can find me at Mark Mohammadpour, and our website is chasingthesunpdx.com. You can email me at mark@, at chasingthesunpdx.com. It's just an honor to be here. And this isn't what I do necessarily day to day, but I love chatting with entrepreneurs and folks, and it inspires me. And I think, I think my one lasting, message is to chat with other business leaders and get inspiration and get ideas and paint your own path. But you just show up every day and you'll be surprised how all of a sudden people will be following you, and you'll be happy that you're taking the leap.
Awesome.
I love that.
That's so beautiful.
Oh my gosh, we're so happy to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's such an honor.
Awesome. All right. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Take the Leap podcast. We hope you found useful takeaways you can apply to your entrepreneurial journey. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and keep in touch and follow us on Instagram. If you have business questions, shoot us a direct message or leave us a comment. We'll try to cover it in an upcoming episode. And visit our website, taketheleap-today.com, for more resources like our online course that accompanies this podcast.